Welcome to watchJojo Cooking. Today we're going to make penne pesto pasta. We're going to use our pesto from a previous video. We'll link that in the description below. Going to use a little bit of extra Parmesan for our garnish. We're going to do a roux to thicken, and we're going to use cream as our base for our sauce here. That's why it's an Alfredo. Feel free to use a light white wine if you wanted to give it the extra sharpness. Some people like cooking with wine. Other people even put it in their food. Let's start by making our roux, so we have that to work with. So I have let's call this quarter cup, maybe 3 ounces, maybe a bit more. And we're gonna just melt that up. So we've melted our butter. It's got a nice fully melted. So we're gonna go equal parts flour. So I said there's 3 ounces of butter here. So what I'm gonna do is each one of these is about a tablespoon. 2 of those approximately makes an ounce. So that's boom, that's 3, that's 4, 5, and 6. Now we need a whisk. So we're gonna stir this up until it's a nice consistency. We no longer see that flour. Looking for almost a paste quality to it. You can see the thickness. Don't want any clumps. Whisking isn't an arms thing, it's a wrist thing. You save yourself a lot of energy that way. A roux is basically a fat and a flour. So you can actually make a roux with bacon fat, which is delicious. Really good in an Alfredo if you were to make a bacon inspired Alfredo. And so the roux thickens. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start boiling my cream. I use 10% cream. Lots of recipes will call for 35%. I honestly don't almost ever see the difference. And if you're in a pinch, you can use milk, but you're gonna need something to help thicken it more and give it a little bit of almost fatty flavor. So you can use more roux, or you can use a cream soup base would work really nicely as kind of your way to fluff it, make it thicker, use less roux, because there is such thing as too much butter. Believe it or not, I know. I'm disappointed too. So let's crack these guys open. Start pouring. Because I'm trying to get it to a boil and I have no solids in here, I'm gonna put it to a 6 or 8. And then once I get my result and I have it at a boil, I'll drop it to a simmer, which will be a 4 out of 10, 3 out of 10 kind of dealio. So there's that. Now for the cool shot. Boom. Don't cross the streams. Boom. Tons of cream sauce. So I'm making a bunch because I have a bunch of pesto that I need to use up. And this will keep very nicely. The big thing is you want to make your sauce and store it separately. You don't want to make your sauce, add your noodles, and then have to heat that up, because if you make your noodles perfectly the first time, they'll be delicious. When you microwave them again, they're going to be super medium. We're not settling for medium here, except for the burnt nuts from the last video. And now we wait for action to occur. While we're doing that, I will also set up my pot for my noodles. So water, I'm gonna go with a little over halfway because I'm only feeding a couple of people. And a little bit of salt here. So what's cool is salt speeds up how fast the water boils, because salt water actually has a lower boiling point than regular water, which is kind of cool. And then also kind of adds that salty flavor to your noodles. And once again, just it's a game of bringing out all flavors and getting the most value out of what you're doing. Cool. So I'm actually going to lid this because obviously you're heating something. You pop a lid on there, the heat can't escape. It can't escape in the form of steam or whatever, but I am going to want this to reduce. So I'm only using the lid to get it up to where I want it, and then I'm going to drop my temperature of my pot, and I'm going to remove the lid so it can reduce. So I'm going to end up with probably 30% less liquid in there, but of course I'm adding solids, so I'm still going to be approximately that level when I'm done. So I can feel the vibrations. So what I've done is I put the pot on top. I can feel just a little shudder in the pan. Might change results per pan and your own like ability to feel things, but like now I've got a nice hard boil going on here, and now I can start letting things reduce. Like I'm no longer going to need this lid. So what we're doing here, we got that going. Now we're gonna add our roux. It's important to add all your ingredients to this cream-based soup after you've got it boiling and you've got that motion, you have that momentum. And at this point, you're not gonna be able to leave it side too much. Like it takes like a solid 15 minutes to start boiling the way you want it to, but you can't leave it side afterwards because you need to keep stirring. The reason for that is you need to keep all the cheeses, all the things we're gonna use, need to be kept moving around so they don't stick to the bottom, because if they stick to the bottom they'll burn and you'll ruin the dish. Got my roux. It's thickened up because it took 15 minutes for us to get this guy boiling. I'm gonna use about half this roux. I always make more roux than I need, and apparently a mess. So once I have that in, it's still kind of clumpy, so I'm stirring it in. And if you're smart, you won't do this after the fact, you'll do it before. Give yourself a spot to put down all your utensils. Make cleanup easy for yourself later. I literally buy like paper towel in bulk, or I use rags, and I have like a bunch in bulk at home, just for constantly cleaning. I believe that like the best way to stay organized is to have a pretty clean kitchen. So now we wait, we let it do its thing. You can kind of see the yellow tinge around the outside. That's like the butter, but like the flour in there is they're binded together. So you can't just add butter and then add flour. You're more likely to get clumps that way. You want to make the roux first and then add the roux. The order in which you put ingredients in tends to matter when it comes to cooking. Not always, like there are some sauces where they're like, do this, then this, and this, and it's like, you're basically just telling me to put everything in a pot and go. That happens, but like, times like this, you need to follow the rules. So next, I'm just gonna grate some cheese. I'm using some pretty low grade, mozzarella. So I'm using some low grade mozzarella. And the reason for that is I have already incredibly expensive ingredients in the form of the fresh pesto. And all I need this cheese to do is kind of be like a binding agent that gives the pasta that extra thickness and helps it bind and stick to my noodles a little nicer. So I'm using about half a block, that's like 200 grams or so of mozzarella cheese here. And it doesn't need to be perfect. Like I'm gonna use all these scraps. Like if I end up with these little pieces here, whatever, it's gonna melt. I'm just speeding along. You don't wanna throw in chunks. Like I wouldn't wanna throw in this. And I certainly wouldn't wanna just throw a brick of cheese in there. And that's because it's not gonna melt fast enough and it's gonna stick to the bottom. It's gonna be super inconsistent. This allows me to control the consistency a little better. Let's give the inside of there a little wipe. There's always cheese sticking to that. So like we're getting a little bit of a film, so we're preventing that by moving things around. The level has dropped slightly, but not a lot. What matters right now is even after stirring, and even with it on simmer, you can see the action. There's a little bit of movement. Here, the bubbling, the light bubbling, that's simmer. If I were to turn it on higher, it would start bubbling more. So like I have it a little higher now, and already you can see results because we're just like right on the edge. It's like that's a hard boil, like medium boil. Now it's back to a simmer. Give it a stir, happy. Add some cheese. Do this in sections. You don't want to have too much cheese. You need it to kind of melt in first and then add more. So like I'm doing like a 2-liter batch of this. So I'm using about 200 grams, which means you get that beautiful number of 100 grams to a liter, which is like, makes conversions really easy. You're just carrying zeros. So like already, because I had it on a good boil, I'm trying to pull up and find if I have any cheese stuck to the bottom. No cheese stuck to the bottom, and I keep pulling up and there's no cheese stuck to this, right? That's because it's already melted in. Fantastic, exactly what we're looking for. Let's go with the rest of this goodness. Like if I were to add all this right away, I'll show you what the stickiness would be like. I'd be pulling up, I'd end up with cheese chunks, right? But because I'm doing it in sections, so just because it's fully melted in doesn't give us permission to be able to walk away from this. So even with it like melting and it's moving around, like already it's kind of dropped to the point where it's no longer simmering. I'm not getting action in the pan anymore. Pot, I should say. And so if I'm not getting any action in this pot, it's settling. If it's settling, the mass of cheese, even if it's moving around, even if it's melted in, will still settle to the bottom. And if it settles to the bottom and that's a high enough temperature, it will sear and it will go brown and it will create a film or a crust of cheese that you'll have to remove. Even if you catch it in time and it's not burnt, if it's burnt, you're screwed. Game over. But if you catch it early enough, you can like remove that cheese, but then you're just throwing cheese out. That's a sin, isn't it? Cool. Getting a little bit of action here. So what's cool is this means we're actually getting really close to being done. You can see we're getting a little more thickness on there. It's still pretty watery. I'm gonna let it like simmer for a bit. You're always gonna find it thickens up around the edges, not in the center. Like the center feels really soft and the outside feels a lot thicker. So like right now, this Alfredo sauce, if I wanted, I would have probably started with like a reduced wine at first if I wanted to just do like a very simple Alfredo with some seasonings, and then added all my cream, added my roux, thickened up. In this case, because we're skipping the wine, we are going to pesto. I can keep it very simple, very like borderline bland right now, because this is just gonna be our delivery method for the complex flavors that is our pesto. So I am almost at a boil, like hard boil. I'm gonna give it just a little bit more, like I wanna see about twice as many bubbles, and only then will I put in my noodles. You don't put your noodles in cold water. Cool, I got a good boil. Temperature drops, but that's okay. Had to let our sauce reduce. It's probably reduced by like 10% because like we've added ingredients and it's lower than the level in which we started at. Our noodles, about 7 minutes, finished up. You can like see that there's not really a ring, but like just barely. I'd taken it out a minute previous and the ring was a little thick. So like it's just right. So what I did was I didn't want it to cook anymore, but it was boiling. So I strain it, I run it under cold water, stops the cooking process, washes off all the stuff. There's still a little bit taste of that salt, but it wouldn't be as present as if I were to just go like soft drain it using the lid and then like adding sauce or something. So noodles are done. Cool. Next up, sauce. Sauce is sufficiently thick. I'm happy with it. So what I'm gonna do is, this is our pesto from a previous video. So pesto, if it sits out, especially at like room temperature, will like start to separate. And likewise, if you have it in the fridge, it'll actually get thicker because oil, it does that. So mix this up in a little bit. Looking sufficiently thick now. And I'm actually going to like even scoop it like that, so I get a little less oil. This particular dish, I want minimal oil. So going with probably about 1.5 cups, maybe 2 cups for your 2 liters worth of sauce. Pretty good value. So we got it in there. Now we whisk. I'm gonna put it back onto like a 3 or a 4. I dropped it down to like literally a 1, just enough to keep it hot. And now every cook's favorite part, taste. Gotta go to taste, so reaching. A spoon or 2. The flavors will become abundant like right away. I'm probably gonna still let it simmer for like another 4 or 5 minutes, just to like kind of let the flavors play together and like really soak into the sauce. A little more sauce, a little more pesto, I should say. Not a lot. Probably up it from like 1.5 cups to 2 cups to like 2.5, maybe even 3. Remember, you're aiming to have it like kind of cook in, so however much you need, go a little lower, play it safe because you don't want to screw it up. And the other thing that was missing, not salt, but pepper was missing. There's pepper in our pesto, but it's not a sufficient enough amount to marry it into the it's not a sufficient amount to marry it into the sauce. So I'm going with probably like 2 teaspoons or so worth of pepper, just like a light spattering. A thin layer. It looks like a lot, but then you start stirring it in and like it disappears. I've got a lip here, so I'm pretty confident in just like free pouring here because I'm a crazy person. There, and a little more. Oh, it's a little messy. So we're gonna just put that right there, make a nice mess. Clean up that rim there. Make it so we have less stuck on stuff for later. And then I still have this burner on, so boom, move it over. We'll let that bond to our noodles here. Give that a moment. So you saw, I put in a little bit of sauce. It almost looked like too much, but as I put in, add heat with the noodles, it sticks to it a little and looks like a little less. Okay, so today we covered penne pesto pasta, And so we covered a few things. We covered how your noodles should be done, how long they should usually take, core parts of it, like making sure that your water is boiling, you cool it down as soon as it's done so it doesn't continue to cook and like continue that process. Same with the how to use a roux, what you're looking for in a basic cream sauce, and then of course we added our homemade pesto video, our homemade pesto. This is a great dish if you're cooking for someone who's vegetarian and you're not, because you're both gonna love the meal. But of course, if you're looking to pair it with chicken, which is what I think I would pair it with, I would not pair it with like a red meat. You don't do that. And I would probably go with like a spicy variety. Like I would go with like a chili powder / Cajun spiced chicken, whether I like sear it with a skillet or if I just pan fry it with a little bit of spices and some garlic. You want all the flavors are really strong at play here, and I think spiciness is like the one thing this dish like could be missing. If you're a spicy fan, it plays really nicely together. That's what I usually do when I make this out. Thank you for watching. See you next time.